I researched One Piece fan letter frame by frame to find out what makes it so unique. And this video is all about the animation. If you're new here, I'm Artistic Abe, a self-taught artist and animator. And this video is the third and final one of a 3-part video series where I analyze the art style, the storyboarding, and the animation of One Piece fan letter. So go watch the other 2 videos if you haven't already. But now let's start right away, since there's a lot to cover today. The animation has really strong character acting. To achieve that, the key animation consists of some really good and expressive poses. To make the poses so expressive, it's important to focus on the head, the shoulders, and the hands. Usually the head shows the emotion, and the hands and shoulders are the secondary action to support the emotion. I also found out that to draw great poses, it's really important that the hands are always doing something, like holding something, supporting the weight of the body, or explaining something. The list goes on. Another thing that makes the poses so great is their silhouette. This makes the poses easily readable for the eye. This clip is a great example. The poses are very expressive. First, she is hiding from her brother, then moves further away and talks about it. Then she realizes she lost the letter. She checks her bag to be sure, and then peeks around the shield to look if the brother took it. We can see that the poses and hand positions are always perfectly chosen and really expressive, so it's clear for the viewer how she is feeling. This and the very exaggerated expressions is what makes the character acting so great. I'm just gonna cover this briefly since there's a lot happening in action scenes. Overall, the strength of the art style really comes to its full potential in those scenes. Because it's made of simple shapes, the animators can make use of insane perspectives and rotations of the characters. This, paired with the satisfying effects and physics, which I will talk about later, just makes for some really good action scenes. Animating in arcs is a key animation principle, but I think it's sometimes a bit overlooked. I personally started seeing it everywhere, especially in fan letter, but not in the way you might think. See, I'm not saying the arm should be moving in an arc, of course, that's obvious, but what I'm talking about are the small and subtle movements. If you make something move in a circle, it creates a really fluid motion that is very satisfying to watch. And this can be found everywhere, like for example here, or here. And I personally sometimes imagine the head kinda like a bouncing ball that's moving around in arcs and circles while talking and acting. Speaking of bouncing ball, we can't forget the next one. Like I said in the first video, the art style is very wobbly, round and bouncy. What causes it to look so bouncy is the animation principle squash and stretch. And it pretty much does what it says. Things squash and stretch. So the characters feel kinda like they're made out of rubber. Not as much as Luffy of course, but for example in scenes where someone jumps in the air and lands again. The character is squashed and stretched. Like that bouncy ball exercise every animator has done before. Squash and stretch is especially noticeable in the faces and expressions of the characters. Usually it's the mouth that's squashing and stretching the head. Overall, this makes the world really lively and enjoyable and almost cartoon-like, and it just perfectly matches the vibe of One Piece. With physics, I mainly mean the way the hair and the clothes move in the animation. The animation principle of follow through and overlapping action are very important here. When a character moves, the hair is lagging behind. Same goes with other stuff, like baggier clothes or bags. This makes it look more bouncy and fluid, since everything is moving in a natural and flowy way, and the clothes bounce with the characters. But hair and clothes also move in the wind. And here we can see something I already told you before. Everything is moving in arcs and circles. Here's an example of a hair strand that's moving from left to right. And here's one that moves in a circular motion. You see what I mean? The one that's in the circle has way more flow to it and just seems more natural since it's moving in an arc and not in a straight line. Overall, those physics just give the animation way more realism and makes it really flowy. One Piece fan letter actually uses a lot of different smears. Of course, first up the basic smear with the zigzag lines, but instead of sharp triangles, the speed is shown through a more wobbly looking smear frame, kinda like it turns into water. Also, some of those smears don't have any outline, to make them even more smeared and therefore simulate even more speed. Another type of smear frame that is used are multiples. This smear frame tricks the brain to think there are more frames, even though it's just multiple drawings in one frame. We can see this here, for example, with Buggy having 3 legs. And I think it's the same as the other smears, that when it should be even faster, the outline is removed. Like we can see here, Buggy's hand has no outline, to make it look even more smeared. There are also stretched out smear frames, which is used, for example, when a head is moving. It's basically squash and stretch, but it can be used kinda like smear frames. So overall, a way more wobbly and creative way of using smears, compared to most regular anime. Animating effects has always been fun to me, but the way Fanletter does it, just chef's kiss. The effects are rather simplified, but that together with the beautiful and flat colors makes them so clean. The way water or magma is drawn is with a lot of round and simple shapes. Debris, rocks, or in this example parts of the ice, is drawn in rather sharp and simple shapes. While smaller pieces are just random particles, the larger ones are drawn as sharp cubes, kinda like Utapon cubes. To make them even more interesting, the cubes are sometimes drawn with C-curves, but usually it's just the simple shapes. The wind effects are really dynamic and simplified wobbly shapes. I can't really describe it that well, but they kinda have the same vibe as the first type of smear frames. But probably the most prominent effect in One Piece Fanletter is this light ray thing. It's a cross, which is thicker in the middle and has a broken circle around it. It imitates a lens flare, which can't be seen on cameras, but is simplified into its core shape. What makes it so good are the warm colors transitioning from white to yellow all the way to the pinkish red. What's also important is that these lights are not always flat. Sometimes they are drawn in 3D space. In motion, these lights are rotating, which gives a really cool effect, especially when it starts fast, then slows down and then goes faster again, almost like slow motion. The last point I wanted to address was that the animation has a lot of slow motion scenes. They are usually used for strong emotional impact to really make the viewer feel and process what's happening. These slow motions also give a good contrast to some of the faster paced scenes in the episode and help to slow down everything. Thank you guys for watching. We're finally done with the 3 videos. This was a lot of work for me, so please check out the other 2 videos and support by liking, following and sharing, all that stuff. Again, big thanks to the whole production team of the episode. I know there are things I didn't cover, like the beautiful background art and some other stuff, but this is all for now. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.